The storm had come without warning. A quiet evening had turned into a torrential downpour, with raindrops tapping rhythmically against the windows. Lena sat by the fireplace in her grandmother's old house, watching the flames flicker and dance. She had always loved this house, even though it was filled with the echoes of the past. The house had a way of speaking, of reminding her of things long forgotten. Lena had moved in after her grandmother passed away, seeking a place to heal after a difficult breakup. The house, nestled in the quiet countryside, seemed like the perfect refuge. The isolation felt like a balm, a way to clear her head. The world outside felt distant, and inside, the world felt like it was hers, calm, comforting, like a warm blanket on a cold night. As the rain intensified, Lena turned her attention to the old rocking chair by the window. It had belonged to her grandmother, and Lena always felt a sense of unease when she looked at it. Tonight, however, she couldn't shake the feeling that it was watching her. She shook her head, trying to dismiss the thought. It was just an old chair after all. But as she sat back in her chair and took a sip of tea, she heard it. A faint whisper. Not loud, not even clear, but there. A soft murmur, as though someone was standing just behind her. Lena's body tensed, and her breath caught in her throat. She turned, but the room was empty. The rain kept falling, tapping against the window with a soft, soothing rhythm. Lena stood up, her heart pounding in her chest. The house was old, and it creaked and groaned at night, but this felt different. The whisper, she couldn't place it. It was like someone was calling her name, but it wasn't a voice she recognized. She glanced at the rocking chair again. It was still. "Get a grip," she whispered to herself. "It's just the wind." But the wind didn't whisper her name. Slowly she walked toward the hallway, her feet soft on the creaking floorboards. She had a sudden urge to check the rest of the house, to make sure nothing was out of place. Maybe it was just the house settling. As she walked down the narrow corridor, the light flickered. A brief, unsettling flash. She paused, staring at the light bulb, but it steadied. Nothing out of the ordinary. But then, another whisper. Louder this time. "Lena." Her name, spoken in a soft voice, one that seemed to echo from the walls themselves. Lena froze. She tried to tell herself it was the house. An old house full of creaks and groans, nothing more. But deep down she felt a chill, something more than just the draft that ran through the hall. She turned and walked back toward the living room, her heart racing. The rocking chair was still empty, but it was moving now, slowly back and forth. The sight of it made her stomach churn. Lena's breath became shallow, her hands trembling as she reached for the door. She wanted to leave, to get out of the house. But where would she go? She was alone here, and the rain was coming down harder now, a pounding wall of sound outside. That night, Lena couldn't sleep. The whispers wouldn't leave her mind. They lingered in the corners of her thoughts, weaving in and out like an unsettling melody. After hours of tossing and turning, she decided to explore the house more. Maybe there was some explanation for the strange occurrences. She couldn't just let her imagination run wild. She ventured into her grandmother's old study, a small room at the end of the hall. The door creaked as she pushed it open, revealing shelves upon shelves of old books. The faint smell of dust and leather filled the air. There, on the desk, was an old journal. It was thick with age, the leather cracked and worn. She opened it slowly, the pages yellowed with time. The handwriting inside was neat, but the words seemed to grow more frantic as she read. The house calls to those who are lonely. It whispers their names, drawing them in, feeding on their solitude. I have heard it too. It is in the walls, the floorboards, the air itself. It will not leave until it has taken what it desires. Lena's breath caught in her throat as she read the words. It couldn't be true. Her grandmother had always been a superstitious woman, prone to telling strange stories. But this felt different. The fear in the words felt real. Her hands shook as she turned the page. The next entry was written in a hurried scrawl. It came again tonight. The voice. It calls to me, trying to pull me into the walls. I can hear it whispering. It knows my name. Lena slammed the book shut, her pulse racing. The whispers had grown louder. She could hear them now, almost clearly, echoing from somewhere deep within the house. They were no longer just a faint murmur. They were clear. Lena, come to us. Her grandmother's words echoed in her mind. It will not leave until it has taken what it desires. Lena's eyes darted around the room, the shadows in the corners seeming to shift. The whispers were now a chorus, surrounding her. She felt something brush her shoulder, but when she spun around, there was nothing there. The house was alive. It had always been alive. Desperate for answers, she ran back to the living room, her footsteps echoing in the empty hall. The rocking chair was still there, moving gently, but now, there was something else. A figure. In the dim light she could just make out the outline of a figure sitting in the chair. Her grandmother. But no, it wasn't her grandmother. It was something else, something twisted, its face obscured by shadow. Lena's breath caught in her throat as the figure slowly turned its head toward her, its empty eyes glistening in the dark. Lena? The voice was not her grandmother's. It was cold, hollow. Lena backed away, her legs trembling. She had to leave. She had to get out of there. But the door to the outside was locked. She couldn't escape. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of voices calling her name, urging her to come closer. Suddenly she remembered the journal again. The words. It feeds on solitude. She wasn't alone anymore. The house had taken her grandmother. And now it was after her. Lena stumbled toward the door, her mind racing. She knew it was too late. The house had claimed her, just like it had claimed her grandmother. With one last desperate glance at the rocking chair, she saw the figure rise. Lena, you can't leave. And then everything went black.